Hello everyone, I'm Polly and today I'm answering one of the most common questions that I get. How do I come up with my ideas for my islands and builds? I've done a video in the past where I show you how I plan my islands. I will leave the link in the description if you'd like to watch that video, but today I will focus mainly on how I come up with ideas. To make things easier, I will show you two mood boards. One for one of my previous islands, in this case Toki, and one for my next island, just so I can give you an example that you can go and compare, since I have all the videos where I built Toki available on my channel, and an example that doesn't exist yet. I'm also doing it this way because I don't usually physically make a mood board for my islands. I have all my ideas inside my brain, but of course that you can see what's inside my brain, so I need to make it a little more accessible to you. Since I've made Toki a while back, I may not have all the visual references that I will mention in this video, so the second mood board, the one that I'm doing for my next island, will probably be more accurate. The idea behind Toki came when I was finishing my main island because even though it was a Japanese-inspired island, it has more of a small town kind of vibe, and I really wanted to try and make bigger builds in different areas that I didn't include on that island, so I decided to make another Japanese-inspired island. It was also a theme that I was comfortable with since I had made other islands using that theme, and I didn't want to start to share my islands with something completely out of my comfort zone, since sharing the process was already completely out of my comfort zone. I don't remember if I mentioned this on my other video where I explain how I plan my islands, but I'm someone who finds inspiration in most things on the daily, and I'm super interested in Japan and its culture and views and all that, so I can easily find visual references on my day-to-day life because it just shows up on social media constantly. I start by gathering visual and sensory references like images, videos, other people's islands and builds, music, books, everything that can help me create a super real vision in my head of the result that I want to accomplish. Now, I know that that's super vague, but I've gathered as many of those references to show you. In this case, I also decided right away what season and time of day that I wanted to save my DA. It's not completely necessary and I don't do it for every island, but on this island I knew I wanted it to be during cherry blossom season at sunset. Combining the visual and sensory references that I previously obtained and the season and time of day, I decided the color palette. I usually choose 2 or 3 main colors and the rest are neutral, so everything ties together. To pick these colors, you may find it easier using the color wheel and creating a triangle starting from the color you are sure you want to use. I don't usually have to do that because I have a graphic design background, so that info is already ingrained in my brain. For this island, I picked pink and green. Both these colors are mainly seen in nature. The trees I chose to use, then the flowers are a great example. Then we have the neutrals, black, white and brown, that I use on the buildings. With all of these things in mind, I go back to my visual references and decide some builds that I want to have on my island. I don't decide all my builds beforehand, I usually have 1 or 2 very strong ideas for certain areas on the island, and the rest kinda comes along with it. The hardest part is probably distributing everything in order for all your ideas to fit inside the island. I don't think too much about it, to be completely honest with you. I don't have a linear sequence of builds that I'm going to do on the island. I start by the ones that I definitely want to have on the island, and if the ideas that I have later fit, it's all good. If not, it's not the end of the world. From those visual references, I also start listing the items that I'll probably need. Depending on the build, the items can be super easy to find and pick, like in-game items. Some will demand some thought and you'll have to figure out what items you can use to achieve a certain result. Now that I've shown you my before starting island process, let's talk a little bit more in depth about some of the builds that I have on Toki. I will not talk about every single one, but I will explain some of the bigger areas. I started this island by the middle, basically. I knew that I wanted a shopping district, but I didn't have a real idea of how big it would turn out, so I just started from there. I had a few different ideas for the shopping district, and my first idea had nothing to do with the one that I ended up using. And my ideas usually suffer some changes in the process of building the area, so in the beginning I wanted to have the resident services in front of the airport and the shopping district would be behind it, one level above. So I would terraform the area behind the resident services and put the Nook's Cranny and Able Sisters up there, but I ended up not picking an island with the resident services in front of the airport because then I had the idea for the pier and decided to have the shopping district on the ground level and the resident services would be inside of it like it ended up being. I had seen other people make shopping districts in the game, my biggest reference was Kinoto, but I had this image on my visual references and I really wanted to recreate the intersection aspect of the image and also incorporate 2 houses on the shopping district. The shopping district ended up taking way more space than I was anticipating. I think I referenced that in one of the speed build videos, so I'm super glad that I decided to start from there. The 2 other main builds for this island were the temple and the ryokan. For the temple, I just tried my best to recreate the visual references that I gathered. To make the temple structured, I looked at different shapes I found on the images I had of Japanese temples and tried to find those same shapes in game's items. And that goes for any kind of build where you do something that doesn't necessarily exist in game. I'm going to give this example that is from another island, but I think the same logic applies. On the abandoned amusement park, I decided that I wanted to make a dragon swing, but such thing doesn't exist in the game. Nor does the shape that I needed, to be quite honest. It took me a lot of searching and playing with different items to come up with the final result shown on the speed build video. Basically, it doesn't really matter the items that you're using to recreate something in-game, as long as you look for the same shapes and try to find something that resembles the most to that. The ryokan was way easier since I was using the in-game house as a main structure, which you can definitely do if you don't feel like spending a lot of time trying to make a fake structure. Something that I had to think was how I could hide the cliffs in certain areas of the island, so I decided to make little shops or buildings. Keep in mind that I'm someone who primes for realism in my builds and islands, so whenever I need to come up with something to transition the areas or hide something, I go ahead and search for even more visual references of possible solutions. Basically, my ideas come from what exists in real life. I'm not a big fan of the fantasy genre in any type of way, not in movies or books or even games are hard for me to enjoy if they are heavily based on fantasy. So I don't consider myself a super creative person who can think of amazing ideas for super different builds. I just recreate what I see around me, and what I see around me inspires me a lot to have ideas. My next island is going to be a tropical island heavily inspired by Indonesia, especially Bali, and I've had the idea for this island after touring a tropical island. Not that that island had the aesthetic that I want for this island, but since I toured that island that I've been wanting to try and make a tropical island. I've never done this theme and it's summer, so I think now is the most appropriate time to try and use this theme on an island. I usually have an idea for my next island soon after I start an island. For example, I had the idea for Arcadia last year when I was building Toki, and the idea for this island came when I was just starting Arcadia, so whenever I start a new island, I'm always super excited and motivated because I've been waiting for that moment, sometimes for months. I decided I wanted to make an island inspired by Indonesia because I feel like that's what I think when I think of a tropical island. Just a little paradise on earth, you know? I've started gathering visual references for this island a while ago, and I already have some ideas for the first areas that I'll be working on. I want to make a resort, and I also want the island to look like it has multiple islands in itself, so I will be working a lot with perspectives and lookout areas, and I want to start working on that alongside with the resort. Basically, I want to make a lookout area that is the pool area of the resort, and I want to see beaches and other islands from there. I also want sort of a shopping area by the entrance of the island, an area that is less luxurious than the resort and has more beach vibes, with small shops where you can rent surfing gear and other beach-related stuff. This island will obviously be set in summer, and besides green, I want to have hibiscus and plumerias. and maybe some purple and blue flowers contrasting with the bushes in some specific areas. I would also like the sky to be dark but sunny at the same time. It's one of my favorite meteorological conditions, and the dark sky with the sun shining on trees and bushes makes those natural features stand out. In terms of items that I'm expecting to be using quite a lot on this island, the acnh gazebo is right at the top of the list, alongside with storefronts and retro transportation stops, and I think I'll also use a lot of white display stands and tokonomas to create the resort and maybe some other hotel-like buildings. Those are pretty much all the ideas that I have for my next island for now, and this is the mood board that I'll be using when making this island. So, in short, it all starts when I have a random idea for an island, then I look for references that will not only determine the builds but also the island's atmosphere. From those references, I decide what builds could look nice on the island, and that also allows me to establish the flora and items that I'll be using. All of that combined originate the builds that I then show here on my channel. Again, I have a creative background that helps me to put into practice all the ideas inside my brain. I'm used to it, but I think that my ideas pretty much come from my hunger of creativity. I'm always searching for inspiration on a daily basis, and anything and everything can spark an idea in my brain. There are a lot of ideas that never come to life because I change plans or simply because I come to the conclusion that I don't have the necessarily skill to get that result that I want, and that's completely fine. I think growing and improving are such important aspects of our lives, and the learning process in this game can be really fun if you're committed to create something you love. No one is 100% original, so it's completely okay to find inspiration in other people's work. A lot of my ideas come from builds made by other people, and that is more than okay. I mean, as long as you're not straight up copying someone and claiming that that idea is original. I hope I wasn't too repetitive and that this video wasn't like super similar to the one where I explain how I plan my islands. I hope this video helps someone out there because I'm constantly being asked about this and it's always hard for me to explain since all my ideas and creativity are inside my brain. I'm super excited to start the new island. I've been wanting to start it for months, so the anticipation is real. Here's a video where I explain how I plan my islands, by the way. I think these videos complement each other since I kinda touch on the subject but not as deep as in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!